Power is not just about thrones, crowns, or titles. Power is about influence. It's about the ability to move people, to sway their decisions, to guide their thoughts without them even realizing they are being guided. And one of the sharpest tools of influence is not found in armies or wealth, but in words. Words can be gentle whispers or sharp daggers, and those who master the art of silence, suggestion, and control can often shape entire outcomes without needing to lift a hand. Many people walk through life with the belief that brute strength, loud voices, or visible authority give them control. But real control, the kind that is almost invisible, comes from understanding psychology, perception, and subtle manipulation. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He recognized that to control others, you must first control yourself. You must learn restraint, timing, and above all, the courage to let silence speak louder than noise. Think of how many times people destroy their own influence simply by talking too much. They reveal secrets that should have been kept hidden. They expose weakness by oversharing their insecurities. They show eagerness, which others interpret as desperation. In contrast, the person who knows when to stay quiet, when to look without speaking, when to withhold a reaction, instantly gains the upper hand. People lean in when you withhold. They wonder about you. They respect the mystery. And respect, once created, becomes the foundation of influence. Machiavelli taught that appearances matter more than reality. It does not matter if you are afraid. Inside, as long as you appear confident. It does not matter if you are uncertain about the outcome, as long as you project certainty. Because people follow what they see and hear, not what is hidden deep inside your mind. Every great strategist knows that people are controlled not by force, but by perception. If you can control what others perceive about you, you can control how they act toward you. Imagine being in a room where everyone is arguing, shouting, trying to prove their intelligence, and you sit quietly, listening, analyzing, saying only a few carefully chosen words. Who do you think will be respected most when you finally speak? It will not be the loudest voice in the room. It will be the calm one, the measured one, the one who speaks last but with precision. That is the Machiavellian way. To conserve energy, to wait for the right moment, to strike only when it matters, and to let others exhaust themselves in noise and chaos. And here is the truth most people ignore. Humans are predictable. They are driven by ego, by fear, by desire. To be accepted. They crave validation. And because of this craving, they are vulnerable to silence. When you do not give someone immediate approval or disapproval, when you withhold reaction, they lean closer, they wonder, they start to chase your validation. Suddenly, you have flipped the balance of power. You are no longer the one chasing approval. They are chasing yours. Think about how many relationships collapse because one person becomes too available, too desperate, too eager. Machiavelli would warn against this. To hold power, you must never appear to need anyone more than they need you. Your silence becomes your strength, your calmness becomes your weapon, and your mystery becomes your shield. But let us make this practical, because Machiavelli's ideas were not just meant to decorate philosophy books. They were meant to be used. Imagine you are negotiating for something important, maybe a job, a deal, or even a relationship boundary. Most people rush to fill every silence with words. They explain too much. They overpromise. They show their desperation. A Machiavellian mind, however, understands that silence is often more powerful than speech. By waiting, By letting the other person feel uncomfortable in the silence, you force them to reveal more than they intended. They start speaking just to fill the emptiness. They make concessions. They expose their weakness. And you simply observe, store that knowledge, and decide how to use it. Another truth is that people reveal themselves not just by what they say, but by what they cannot endure, and most cannot endure silence. If you master silence, if you can stay calm, collected, and unreadable, you will dominate more conversations than you ever could by shouting or debating. This is the hidden art of control. It is not about proving your intelligence. It is about positioning yourself so that others reveal theirs, and then using that knowledge as leverage. Machiavelli believed that the wise leader knows people better than they know themselves, and uses their desires to guide their actions. This is not cruelty, it is realism. People often do not know what is best for them. They are impulsive, emotional, and inconsistent. The one who stands apart, who observes, who understands these weaknesses without being consumed by them, becomes the true master. Now, it is easy to hear this and think it sounds cold or manipulative. But let me ask you this: is it manipulation to understand human behavior and act with intelligence? Or is it survival? Every day, you are being influenced, whether you realize it or not. Advertisements, social media, political speeches, even conversations with friends, they are all designed to shape your behavior. The only question is whether you will be a passive subject of influence or an active master of it. Machiavelli would insist that you cannot afford to be passive, because the world rewards those who are awake, aware, and able to guide outcomes. The real secret is that power and compassion are not enemies. Many think Machiavellian wisdom is purely ruthless, but this is not entirely true. True power does not always mean cruelty. Sometimes the best way to control the situation is by showing unexpected kindness. When you surprise people with mercy, with generosity, they become bound to you, grateful, even indebted. And gratitude, when combined with respect, is stronger than fear. Machiavelli famously said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But he also understood that the ideal is to balance both in your favor, to hold enough mystery and authority that people respect you, while still offering enough warmth that they willingly follow you. That balance is mastery. Think about the times in your own life when someone carried an aura of quiet strength. Maybe a mentor, a teacher, or even a stranger who walked into a room and instantly commanded attention without saying a word. That was not magic. That was presence. Presence comes from discipline. It comes from knowing you do not have to over-express yourself. You do not have to fill every silence. You do not have to prove your worth through constant talking. Presence is born from self-control, and self-control is the foundation of influence. If you want to live with power, you must first master yourself, your impulses, your emotions, your fears. If they control you, then others will control you. But if you can hold them, if you can wait, if you can choose when and how to act, then you are already ahead of most. And here is where empowerment begins. This is not just about manipulating others for personal gain. It is about freeing yourself from the invisible chains that make most people weak. Overthinking, fear of rejection, desperation for approval, these are the forces that enslave millions silently. Machiavellian wisdom, when applied with awareness, can liberate you. It teaches you that you do not need to be reactive. You do not need to be controlled by other people's moods, demands, or judgments. You can choose your responses. You can choose when to act, and when to remain silent. And in that choice lies your freedom, because what is freedom, really, if not the ability to remain calm when the world tries to provoke you? What is power, if not the ability to choose your response instead of being dragged by impulse? These are not abstract ideas, they are practical weapons. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: you do not owe them a reaction. Every time you respond too quickly, you give them control. Every time you pause, breathe, and decide consciously, you take control back. This is how empires are won, but it is also how personal battles in families, friendships, workplaces are quietly mastered. Now, imagine living this way every day. Imagine walking into a room, knowing you do not need to impress anyone, but that everyone will eventually be drawn to you because of your calmness. Imagine negotiating for your dreams without fear, because you understand that silence is often louder than pleading. Imagine relationships where you are not desperate for validation, but instead respected for your independence and self-control. This is what Machiavelli's wisdom can give you if you are brave enough to practice it. It is not about becoming heartless. It is about becoming strong. It is about freeing yourself from the traps that make others weak and learning to move with intelligence in a world where most are ruled by impulse. And here is the greatest irony. When you learn to outsmart people without saying a word, when you master presence, silence, and perception, you no longer need to manipulate, because the energy you carry speaks for itself. People sense it, they feel it, they are drawn to it, they begin to align with you without even knowing why. That is the highest level of influence, when you no longer need to force anything, because your very being shifts the balance of power. That is not just Machiavellian strategy, that is human mastery. The truth most people avoid is that the game of life is always being played, whether you like it or not. Every room you walk into, every conversation you have, every choice you make, there are power dynamics beneath the surface. Most people are blind to them, and that is why they are manipulated without realizing it. They believe they are free, but in reality, their emotions, desires, and fears are being directed by those who understand how influence works. To live unconsciously is to be a pawn. To live consciously is to become a strategist. And strategy begins the moment you decide to stop being predictable. Predictability is weakness. If others can guess your next move, they can plan around you, they can exploit you. But if you master the art of unpredictability, you force people to always be on edge around you. They can no longer box you into an easy category. They cannot reduce you to something safe and controllable. Think of the people you know who always act in exactly the same way. They always reveal too much. They always answer too quickly. They always react when provoked. You know exactly how to push their buttons. That is how most of the world lives, exposed, predictable, easy to manipulate. Machiavelli would tell you this is the greatest mistake. Never allow others to read you completely. Keep something hidden. Keep them guessing. Because the moment you are fully understood, you can be fully controlled. And here is the paradox. People think they want to understand you, but in truth, what they respect most is the mystery they cannot solve. A person who gives everything away loses their aura, but a person who speaks carefully, who moves with intention, who sometimes surprises others with silence, instead of reaction, that person becomes unforgettable. They begin to hold weight in every room, not because of what they say, but because of what they do not say. Machiavelli knew that power often rests in the things unsaid, in the secrets withheld, in the carefully crafted image that leaves just enough for the imagination to do the rest. To outsmart anyone without saying a word, you must also learn to observe. Observation is the invisible weapon most people ignore. Everyone is so eager to speak, to tell their story, to prove their worth, that they forget the greatest advantage is to listen. The one who listens learns everything. They hear the fears people try to hide. They notice the inconsistencies between words and actions. They see the subtle cracks in the armor. And once you know these things, you hold the keys to influence. Because when you know someone better than they know themselves, you can lead them without them realizing they are being led. This is not about cruelty. It is about understanding that knowledge is power, and silence is often the path to knowledge. But let us not be naive. Sometimes control requires more than just silence. Sometimes you must plant an idea subtly so that others believe it is their own. This is one of the most powerful strategies of all. When people believe they have chosen freely, they defend their choice fiercely. But if you push too hard, if you reveal your agenda too openly, they resist. So, the wise one plants seeds instead of commands. A question asked at the right moment. A suggestion spoken lightly. A silence that makes someone else fill the space with the answer you wanted all along. This is how leaders shape outcomes without needing to argue or demand. This is how you become the quiet architect of decisions, and yet the path of influence is not only about others. It is first and foremost about yourself. Self-mastery is the foundation. If you cannot govern your emotions, you will be governed by others. If you cannot delay gratification, you will be enslaved by your desires. If you cannot keep your secrets, others will weaponize them against you. Machiavelli understood this. He taught that fortune favors the disciplined, the calculating, the ones who can sacrifice momentary comfort for long-term control. The greatest weakness of ordinary people is their inability to endure discomfort. They rush for relief. They seek quick validation. They need constant reassurance. But the one who can endure silence, the one who can carry mystery, the one who can remain calm under provocation, becomes untouchable. Because no one can take control of what they cannot move. Ask yourself, how often do you give away power without realizing it? How often do you reveal your thoughts too quickly, explain yourself too much, or let someone's insult drag you into reaction? Every time you do, you hand over control. But every time you pause, every time you choose silence, every time you decide not to let another person dictate your state of mind, you reclaim your power. This is the quiet revolution of influence. It does not require violence, shouting, or force. It requires awareness, restraint, and intention. These are the qualities that separate the rulers from the ruled. And here is the beautiful irony. Once you master these qualities, people will call you confident, charismatic, magnetic. They will believe you were born with it. They will not see the discipline behind your silence, the self-control behind your calmness, the strategy behind your unpredictability. They will simply feel drawn to you. They will seek your presence. They will respect your words because you do not waste them. And this is the point. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. The less you reveal, the more people lean in. The less you react, the more control you have over the situation. Let's take this deeper. Machiavelli would remind you that humans are not as complicated as they pretend to be. They are ruled by the same core desires: to be loved, to be respected, to feel safe, to feel important. If you can learn to identify which desire drives a person, you can guide them without saying much at all. The ambitious crave recognition. The insecure crave validation. The fearful crave reassurance. The proud crave admiration. Once you identify the dominant desire, you can adjust your silence, your presence, your rare words to touch that desire. And once you do, you hold influence. This is not theory. This is the reality of human behavior. To ignore it is to remain blind. To understand it is to see the invisible strings that pull at people's hearts. But power without purpose is empty. The question you must ask yourself is, why do you want this power? If it is only for domination, it will eventually destroy you. But if it is for freedom, for protection, for the ability to create and to lead with intelligence, then it becomes something noble. Machiavelli has often been accused of being ruthless. But if you read his lessons carefully, you realize his purpose was survival. He was telling us, the world is not fair. People are not always loyal. Promises are broken. Alliances shift. Appearances deceive. If you want to endure, you must be awake. You must be strategic. You must be stronger than the illusions people live under. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. Now, imagine applying this wisdom to your life today. Imagine walking into every conversation with the awareness that you do not need to overshare. Imagine carrying yourself with an energy of quiet strength, where others cannot predict you but are drawn to you. Imagine listening more deeply than you speak, so you always know more than those around you. Imagine planting ideas subtly, guiding outcomes without conflict, leading without force. This is not fantasy. This is a skill. And like all skills, it is built with practice. Every day you will face opportunities to either give away your power or claim it. Every pause you hold, every silence you embrace, every mystery you keep alive, you grow stronger, and the more you grow, the more you will notice something strange. People will begin to treat you differently. They will seek your advice more often. They will respect your presence more deeply. They will trust your judgment, not because you shouted it, but because you earned it quietly. This is the paradox of power. The ones who chase it loudly rarely keep it. The ones who cultivate it silently cannot lose it. This is why Machiavelli's wisdom is timeless. It cuts through the illusions of force and shows us that true power is always subtle, always psychological, always rooted in self. So, let me leave you with this. You do not need to outtalk people to outsmart them. You do not need to prove yourself to earn respect. You do not need to reveal everything to be trusted. In fact, the opposite is true. The less you reveal, the more people wonder. The more you listen, the more you learn. The more you wait, the more control you have when the time is right. This is not just strategy for politics or leadership. This is strategy for life, for relationships, for survival, for freedom. You hold more power than you realize, but only if you are willing to master yourself first. So, carry yourself with silence when the world expects noise. Choose unpredictability when they expect routine. Offer generosity when they expect ruthlessness, and restraint when they expect reaction. Be the one they cannot read, the one they cannot predict, the one they cannot move, and soon you will find that the world bends around you, not because you forced it, but because you mastered the art of invisible influence. That is how you outsmart anyone without saying a word. That is how you rise without begging. That is how you lead without shouting. That is how you win without ever appearing to fight.